Welcome to the Daddy Dialogue podcast. And I want to start making some of these without a crazy amount of preparation because sometimes parenting is ever evolving. It's always happening. And there's moments that you can't plan everything. And so I think it's really authentic when we're able to have this conversation and you hear my real life struggles without a lot of pre-planning, a lot of research, and pretty much getting to the point of understanding. Because sometimes when we're parenting or being fathers or mothers, we quickly have to adjust and move. You could be doing really good at one point, and then all of a sudden everything goes into turmoil. And so I'm dealing with that right now. And I felt like, okay, let me go ahead and record an episode of this. This episode is clearly called $130 in Robux. And so the title itself should pretty much be self-explanatory of what's happening in my life right now. And it sort of threw me for a loop. I thought I would be that parent that would never have to deal with this. And this is the first time I'm dealing with an issue like this. It's not crazy, but it is something to be careful about and something that we sort of slipped on and it bit us in the back end. And so $130 in Robux. Yes, someone spent $130 on Roblox, however you want to say it. It's the Robux game. I'm sure your kids have played it or have played it or play it now. It's a really favorite game of many kids now. My child plays this game and often every couple weeks or every week, some little money is allocated to buy Robux, to do, to buy skins, do whatever. And so yesterday, I'll get right to the point, get right to the lesson, what we learned and what we have been doing since. This happened yesterday, so it's fresh, okay? Yesterday, my son had some time to be on a phone, and we are in this season in our lives with our son where he is having to make sure that he shows us with action and maturity that he is able to obtain and be responsible with a phone, not just with having a phone, but also keeping it away at school and not getting in trouble at school with it. Plus also making sure that when we say get on it, you're on it. And when you're off the phone, you're off it. And so we've been gauging this stuff for months. He went from a really scrubby phone, like a really crappy phone, to a second level better phone that was a backup phone that I had that was a really good phone. And so we gave him this phone and he's been playing Roblox on this phone back and forth for the last couple of weeks, maybe a month or so. And so at one point, if you don't know, my son, if I would suggest you do this at some point, maybe 2 years ago, we got this green light card for our son, which is pretty much a savings account on a green card that sort of shows him how to manage his money, and he can see how much money he has saved. He can use it on whatever he wants: candy, outings, movies. He can buy us food. He can do whatever he wants with it. But we're also very lenient. Okay, if you're going to make a purchase and it's big, give us, let's have a conversation so we understand why we're buying it. Do we need to buy it? Is it really necessary? Sort of on that whole financial literacy thing, which soon I'm going to have somebody on the podcast where we're going to talk about steps to get your kid into teaching your kid financial literacy. I think parents need it too, but kids also can be taught at an early age because it could be a recipe for disaster as they get older. Point being that as we did this, we give him this green card. At some point a couple weeks ago, he used that green light card to buy some Robux, I think $5 or $10 worth. The problem is usually when we do this, we don't save the card on there. So on his cell phone, it's not saved on there because we're worried at some point he might start making purchases and it's like water. And so when you have money there, a couple $100, you're just spending and you're not really understanding why, but you're getting the things you want. You don't care. You're a kid. And so recently it looks like he might have saved the information on the phone, which is our first error. But we made that mistake. It happens. And he saved the information. And it looks like 2 days ago, he started making purchases. The problem with him not just making purchases was that my son was doing it sneak, like sort of low key, like not telling anyone. And he was just buying. And so in 2 days, he's racked up a bill, not a bill because this is his money. He's racked up over $130 of Robux. Let's say that again. $130 of Robux. How did we find this out? Well, he came to us 2 days ago or a day ago and was like, hey, mommy and daddy, can you transfer my green light information from this old phone to the new phone daddy gave me, and so I can make some transactions. The thing he failed to understand or see was that my wife was going to look at the payment history or the history of his transactions. And she noticed a red flag when she looked at his balance and saw that all of a sudden his balance was missing $100 or $200. And she was like, wait up, something's not connecting here. Where's the money? And so she started looking at the history. There goes, and we see the glorious spending spree of $130 of Robux. I will say, I've been learning to be a better parent. My parenting style has changed. I'm going to talk about it soon on the podcast of the 4 different types of parenting styles. I'm transitioning from one to another. I'm going to give you all that in detail because I think every parent is somewhere in those 4. Hopefully you're not one of them. It's really bad. So I've been careful of just lashing out, working on my inner, my learned behavior, my trauma, not to lash out at my son, but 1, listen to him, 2, make him understand where the problem lies, and 3, what we're going to do to fix it. I'm not perfect, but that's what I'm trying these days. It's doing better for me. Okay. I'm trying to change my parenting style. So what do we do? First thing, I was hot. So I needed 5 minutes to sit back, relax, process, see how I was going to direct the problem. His mom spoke to him, and it was my turn to sit with him and have a conversation. Not to blast him, not to make him feel bad, but have a dialogue about what was done wrong, son, what we can do to fix, and then the consequences that come with your actions. And so we walked with him. That's the first thing we did. We understood, we had to make him understand the value of money. I'm still doing this. It's still a work in progress because sometimes our kids don't understand the value, and so they spend money like it's water, not understanding that their parents are breaking their backs to make this money, to pay the bills, to pay the mortgage, to pay the car payment, to pay the gas, to pay the food, to pay all these things. It's not a convicting thing like, hey, son, this is what you don't do and we do. It's not that. It's more like, son, this thing has value. And so we have to work really hard to get there. So that's 1. And so we educate before we instruct or show action. That's first of all, educate, and then we instruct, and then we show action at the end of that. Number 2, we forgive. We say, son, we forgive you. He was breaking down. I was trying to hold it together because he was emotional about him doing this sort of snow low key and not getting caught and then getting caught. So we say, we forgive you, and then let's listen to why this is bad. And son, why did you do this? Why was the impulse? Was it just because it was accessible? Was it? And so we're having that conversation. He's honest. I've worked really hard the last couple of months to have my son trust me, not fear me. There's a difference. When your son fears you, they're not going to talk to you. They're not going to open their hearts to want to tell you honestly what's happening. When they trust you, then you build a bond. And now they're open to telling you honestly what's happening in their lives and how you can come together to try to fix it or learn from it to educate ourselves to be better next time. Not that we're going to be perfect, but we're striving to that. So we had that conversation. We had that understanding. We wanted to prepare ourselves to how we better prepare ourselves for the next time we run into this situation and why it's a problem, why we do this, why we don't do this, what we're going to do next time to not fall into these habits of bad administration of money. These small things seem small right now, but could be huge later. Imagine your kid having access to your card and spending thousands of dollars that he thought was water, and it's money you hard earned. There's a big difference there. And so we want to make sure we attack these things now before it gets worse later. Then the last thing we did, we talk about consequences for the actions that were taken. So we said, son, these are the things that were going to happen. So you're probably wondering, what did you do? What did you do to your son? Did you put him in a corner? No, I didn't do any of that. We did one that was worse, possibly in his retrospect over his life. And I think it's great. So we've done a couple of things with phones. And some parents agree, some don't. It's okay. Every parent is different. Every child is different. We knew at 10 or 11, that's when Josiah was going to have a phone. At what level, we didn't know. But there was going to have to be some things met, some criteria, some goals, some maturity had to happen, all in a mix for us to believe clearly that he was ready and responsible for a phone. Could we be right? Possibly. Could we be wrong? Yeah. I mean, that goes different with every other parent. I'm telling you what I did. And so we said, okay, son, the consequences are 1, you won't have a phone for the next week. There'll be no Roblox. You won't be playing any games like that. You got to take a break. We need to take a break. We need to step back, understand our actions, regress, reprogram, and then when we come back, we understand the value of what we have. That's one. It's not perfect. It's not the best model, but it's worked for us. One, it shows value of what this is. And secondly, it's a reward. It's not just, we're just giving you stuff and here's the phone because we want you to be quiet. No, son, this is a reward. You put the time in, you do what you handle your business at school. These are one of the rewards. You get some time on your phone. You can do your thing. You know what I mean? And then we had a conversation that probably was even deeper for him, was like, listen, you've been on this path of doing the things you needed to do to get the cell phone when your birthday comes up in a couple months. Right now, it's looking shaky because you're not showing us maturity. You did something sneak to access something without telling your parents, and then you thought you weren't getting caught, and you got caught. So that shows me there's a level of immaturity there. We also know you're a kid, but it shows us a level of immaturity that, well, we might not be able to trust you as much as we wanted, or it throws up a red flag. We got to be a little more careful with you. Are we all of a sudden going to throw a book at our kid? No, that's not what's happening here. But I think it's a great pivotal parenting session where we can learn something. All of us, him, us being irresponsible and not making sure his stuff was not saved on there, him being responsible and being mature enough to not spend money when it's on a card. It's hard. Any kid would do it. That's like having food in the fridge or ice cream and telling your kid not to touch it. And you leave, they might touch it. It's just going to happen. You can't set up for failure. You got to be wise and pre-program and set things early on, set a foundation where you could try to be better. Not that we're perfect, because none of us are, but we try to put these things into perspective and set a foundation where at least this gives us a better opportunity at dealing with some of these things. So the punishment was simple. Listen, we're going to take the phone away for a week. That was enough. That was enough for him. He didn't need to hear anything else. He was struggling with that. And although his his alligator eyes were piercing my heart, I knew as a father, it was the right move. And we hope to see what time will tell with his actions in the future. I thought it was going to be good to say this because what would you do if your son did that? I know some people that will not have this conversation, will not listen, and will beat the living chancleta out of their kid because you're talking to the guy who used to do that. And so I've learned to be calm, relax. Don't let my trauma, my past emotions, or my learned behavior get the best of me. Think a little bit, process. We're in a different time. We're not in the 80s or 90s. Kids are different now. The way they're processing is different. But what doesn't change is the foundation of our faith, one, and two, the principles that we have with our children. I hope this is a blessing to you. I kept this session short. It's a rapid fire, what we're doing in the midst of the fire with our kids spending $130 on Roblox. Hopefully it doesn't happen again. We'll take measures so it doesn't. What would you do? Tell me in the comments below or leave me a message and let me know what you would do if your kid spent that kind of money on your credit card with Roblox. Thank you guys. Remember to always follow us on the Facebook at the Daddy Dialogue Podcast or on Instagram or all these other sites that we are on. Thank you so much. Leave us a review on the podcast. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Talk to you guys next time right here on the Daddy Dialogue Podcast.